Welcome back to the Story Place. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone, and this is Norfolk Public TV. And I have some more poems for you, but I have a story first. It's called Benjamin Dilley's Thirsty Camel. And it's yet another book about children's imagination. So it's, you never want to lose your imagination when you grow up. Benjamin Dilley was a little boy about the same age as many little boys. People said that Benjamin Dilley was a dreamer, but the truth was that he had a wonderful imagination. For instance, he could shut his eyes and imagine a lavender hippopotamus in a general's uniform smelling a flower, and when he opened his eyes, there would be the hippo, really, a real live hippopotamus in a general's uniform standing right there in front of Benjamin. He could imagine a genie in a bottle or out of a bottle. And that genie was so real that he'd even grant Benjamin a wish. Benjamin Dilley could see almost anything with that wonderful imagination of his. A goat driving a sports car, bunnies jumping on the furniture, or a scary witch doctor jumping rope with a snake. Once he even imagined a friendly whale that took him clear around the world one morning, swimming so fast that Benjamin got back in plenty of time to wash his hands for lunch. The trouble was that nobody but Benjamin could see all these wonderful things. Benjamin would say, "Mom, you shouldn't work so hard. My genie would be glad to do that." But his mother would say, "Yes, yes, dear, that's nice. Keep off the floor till it's dry, won't you, dear?" Benjamin would say, "Look, Grandpa, there's a whole platoon of soldiers standing right behind you." But Grandpa would just say, "That reminds me of the time I was in the army." And then he'd tell Benjamin all about it again. Benjamin would say, "Dad, have you ever seen a turtle in a turtleneck sweater?" But Father would just say, "No, I haven't. Have you seen the rest of my paper?" One afternoon, Benjamin Dilley was watching his father fix a leak in a pipe down in the basement. It was a small leak, just a drip now and then, but it was taking Benjamin's father a long time because his wrench was far too big, for one thing. To pass the time, Benjamin imagined a funny old camel with glasses perched on the end of his nose. They decided to have a game of ping pong while Father worked. The camel looked quite old and rickety, but he turned out to be a very good ping pong player. My camel says you're turning that wrench the wrong way, Dad," said Benjamin. "Your father knows what he's doing." "Oh," his father started to say, but a great rush of water interrupted him, squirting from the pipe with a frightening sound all over Father and Benjamin and the basement floor. Benjamin's father struggled with the pipe, but it was no use. He just got wetter, and he dropped his wrench. The water kept spraying out of the pipe and spreading out over the basement floor. Soon it was an inch deep and then 2 inches, and in no time it reached almost to Father's knees. "It's a regular flood," he cried. Letting go of the pipe, he splashed to the stairs and dashed up to the kitchen. Benjamin Dilley could hear his father shouting into the telephone, "Help! Send a plumber over right. Send 2 plumbers, and hurry." Benjamin looked at the water rising around his tummy. "Do something, Mr. Camel," he shouted. "Glad to," said the camel. First he found Father's big wrench. Using it to turn the pipe the opposite way that Father had, he managed to stop the frightening rush of water almost at once. Then he did a remarkable thing. He started to drink. He drank and he drank. He kept on drinking. "Oh, delicious water you have here," he said between gulps. The skinny old camel started to fill out. He reminded Benjamin of a balloon being blown up. With each gulp, he grew wider and taller. His 2 humps grew even fatter. Soon the basement was almost completely dry. The camel was licking up the last few drops under the ping pong table when both Father and Mother came rushing down the stairs carrying mops and pails. Mother was crying, "My baby, he'll drown." "Everything's under control," said the camel quietly. Benjamin Dilley's father didn't hear him. The water's gone, he cried. I don't understand. Naturally, said the camel, I drank, but of course, Father didn't hear. I just don't understand, he repeated. And the next minute, the plumber was banging on the kitchen door. The plumber was a big man in blue overalls. He was followed by 2 helpers carrying tools. Where's the flood? He shouted. It's gone, said Father. My camel drank it up, explained Benjamin, but nobody paid any attention to him. The plumber looked around at the dry basement. I thought you said it was filling up with water, he grumbled. Benjamin thought he sounded a little disappointed. Finally, after searching in corners and behind things, the plumber found a small drain under the wash tubs. He scratched his head and said that somehow the water must have all gone down that little drain. Of course, said Father. Of course, said Mother. And that was that. It seemed impossible to Benjamin that none of the plumbers noticed his camel. Camels are all pretty big, and this one with all that water in him was the fattest, bulgiest one ever. Benjamin thought that if the plumber was able to see that tiny drain under the wash tubs, well, he should be able to see a great big camel. Just to check, he imagined a whole tree full of owls right in front of the plumber. Plumber didn't see them. Benjamin imagined a horse playing a trombone just as loud as he could, right into the ear of one of the helpers. The helper didn't see it or hear it. Finally, he imagined a leprechaun who danced merrily around the basement, painting everyone blue. But they didn't notice, not even Mother, who always said that blue was her favorite color. When the plumbers had left, Benjamin Dilley's father gave a sigh of relief. Well, that was lucky. If that little drain hadn't worked so well, all that water would have really made a mess. Benjamin patted the camel. Don't you care, he whispered. I know you did it. That night when he was snug in bed, Benjamin Dilley imagined the camel on one side of his bed and the genie on the other. He imagined an owl on each bedpost and some bunnies. Good night, said Benjamin. He felt sorry for all the grown-ups who couldn't see his friends. Pleasant dreams, said the camel and the genie and the owls and the bunnies, and they all went to sleep together. Now, I don't know if a genie in a bottle means anything to you children. You don't hear much about them anymore. There was it was probably a children's story, or maybe it was a story for adults. In Arabia, which is now the Middle East, where Iran is, and Jordan, and Afghanistan. And the story was that there was a magic lamp, and if it was rubbed a certain way, a genie would come out. And the genie, if you notice here, was in a turban. Now, you do see men, some men in India wear turbans. And they used to also wrap their head. Maybe you've seen it on the news. Maybe you've seen some of the men in the Middle East wrapping their hair. Well, it's because it's so dusty that they cover their heads to keep their hair clean. So that's what the genie in a bottle is about. Children, we're going to go back to the Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm going to read you some more. And again, I hope you love the drawings. They're really very beautiful. To the Wind. I saw you toss the kites on high and blow the birds about the sky. And all around I heard you pass like ladies' skirts across the grass. O wind a-blowing all day long, O wind that sings so loud a song. I saw the different things you did, but always you yourself you hid. I felt you push, I heard you call. I could not see yourself at all. O wind a-blowing all day long, O wind that sings so loud a song. O you that are so strong and cold, O blower, are you young or old? Are you a beast of the field and tree, or just a stronger child than me? O wind a-blowing all day long, O wind that sings so loud a song. Time to rise. A birdie with a yellow bill hopped upon the window sill, cocked his shining eye and said, "Aren't you ashamed, you sleepy head?" Oh, I should perhaps mention, children, that the reason they talk about ladies' skirts on the grass is because these were all written 150 years ago. So women's skirts were long and they trailed across the grass. This is called Escape at Bedtime. The lights from the parlor and kitchen shone out through the blinds and the windows and bars. And high overhead and all moving about, there were thousands of millions of stars. Ne'er were such thousands of leaves on a tree, nor of people in church or the park, as the crowds of the stars that looked down upon me and that glittered and winked in the dark. The dog and the plow and the hunter and all, and the star of the sailor and Mars, these shone in the sky, and the pail by the wall would be half full of waters and stars. They saw me at last, and they chased me with cries, and soon they had me packed into bed. But the glory kept shining and bright in my eyes, and the stars going round in my head. So that was his parents that caught him, saw him at the window and chased him into bed. And this is called My Treasure. These nuts that I keep in the back of the nest, where all my lead soldiers are lying at rest, were gathered in autumn by Nursey and me in a wood with a well by the side of the sea. The whistle we made, and how clearly it sounds, by the side of the field at the end of the grounds, of a branch or of a plane with a knife of my own, it was Nursey who made it, and Nursey alone. The stone with the white and the yellow and gray, we discovered I cannot tell how far away, and I carried it back, although weary and cold, for though Father denies it, I'm sure it is gold. But of all my treasures, the last is the king, for there's very few children possess such a thing. And that is a chisel, both handle and blade, which a man who was really a carpenter made. The whole duty of children. A child should always say what's true and speak when he is spoken to, and behave mannerly at table, at least as far as he or she is able. Armies in the fire. The lamps now glitter down the street, faintly sound the falling feet, and the blue even slowly falls about the garden trees and walls. Now in the falling of the gloom, the red fire paints the empty room, and warmly on the roof it looks and flickers on the backs of books. Armies march by, tower and spire of cities blazing in the fire, till as I gaze with staring eyes, the armies fade, the luster dies. Then once again the glow returns, again the phantom city burns, and down the red-hot valley, lo, the phantom armies marching go. Blinking embers, tell me true, where are those armies marching to? And what the burning city is that crumbles in your furnaces? This is called Good and Bad Children. Children, you are very little, and your bones are very brittle. If you would grow great and stately, you must try to walk sedately. You must still be bright and quiet and content with simple diet, and remain through all bewildering, innocent and honest children. Happy hearts and happy faces, happy play in grassy places. That was how in ancient ages children grew to kings and sages. But the unkind and the unruly and the sort who eat unduly, they must never hope for glory. Theirs is quite a different story. Cruel children, crying babies, all grow up as geese and gabies, hated as their age increases by their nephews and their nieces. Now, I want to say one thing. Again, you have to remember 150 years ago, maybe even more than that, probably, children's bones were not brittle. People didn't know that, of course. They assumed it was. But no. Children's bones are actually soft, which is why they don't get broken as easily as older people's bones do. To my name child is this next one, and this would be addressed to someone whose parents gave their child your name. Someday soon, this rhyming volume, if you learn with proper speed, little Luis Sanchez will be given you to read. Then you shall discover that your name was printed down by the English printers long before in London town. In the great and busy city where the East and West are met, all the little letters did the English printer set. While you thought of nothing and were still too young to play, foreign people thought of you in places far away. Aye, and while you slept a baby, over all the English lands, other children took the volume in their hands. Other children questioned in their homes across the seas, "Who was little Louis? Won't you tell us, mother, please?" Well, by the time Stevenson was living, I don't know how many of the colonies that the British had were still under their control. I'm sure there were still quite a lot of them. I mean, India particularly, a lot of British families went to India. And here's one last one. It's called "To Any Reader." As from the house your mother sees you playing round the garden trees, so you may see, if you will look through the windows of this book, another child, far, far away, and in another garden, play. But do you think you can at all, by knocking on the window, call that child to hear you? He intent is all on his play business bent. He does not hear, he will not look, nor yet be lured out of this book. For long ago, the truth to say, he has grown up and gone away, and it is but a child of air that lingers in the garden there. And this next one is called "Beware the Storybook Wolves" by Lauren Child. Every night Herb's mother would read him a bedtime story. Sometimes it was about a big wolf who terrified little girls and their grandmothers with his chilling growl and his big yellow teeth. You could tell from the picture that toothpaste had never been on his shopping list. The story got very nasty in the middle and everybody nearly came to a sticky end, but by the last page, it had all turned out well and went happily ever after. It was one of Herb's favorites. He particularly liked the back cover, which had a picture of a smaller wolf with a patch over one eye and the words, "For a real thrill, try reading the story of the little fierce wolf and the 3 pink piglets. It will scare your socks off." Whenever his mother finished this bedtime story, Herb would say, "Don't forget to take that book with you." And his mother would ask, "Why?" "Because there's a wolf in it, of course," Herb would say. Herb's mother would smile to herself because she knew that storybook wolves are not at all dangerous. One night, just as they were finishing the wolf story, the telephone rang. In her hurry, Herb's mother forgot all about taking the book with her. Herb didn't realize at first, but as he was snoozing off, he thought he heard a deep rumbling sound coming from his bedside table. It was like the rumbling of a very hungry tummy, or perhaps even 2 very hungry tummies. Then he began to smell a not very nice smell, a sort of bad breath type of smell. Herb got a funny feeling that 2 or maybe even 3 eyes were watching him. Unwisely, he switched on the light, and there, standing in front of him, was the big storybook wolf. And next to him was the other smaller wolf with a patch over one eye. Herb recognized him as the back cover wolf. Big Wolf said in a low, greedy voice. "I thought I could smell something tasty. I'm going to gobble you up, little boy." And he started to lick his chops. Oh, can I have his little pink toes? They look just like piglets," said Little Wolf. And he tried to lick his chops, but he wasn't very good at it and just ended up dribbling on the carpet. I wouldn't eat me yet," stammered Herb, desperately trying to think of a plan to distract the wolves from wolfing him down. "Why not?" said Big Wolf, giving him a sideways stare. "Yes, why not?" said Little Wolf, trying to give him a sideways stare. Oh, because little boys are for dessert, you have to start with appetizers, of course. Well, I didn't know that, said Big Wolf. Really? Said Herb, feeling a little bit pleased with his own craftiness. I thought everybody knew that. Oh, I knew that, said Little Wolf. No, you did not, said Big, slightly less than fierce than before, Wolf. Well, yes, I certainly did, said Little Wolf, puffing himself up. Well, if you're so clever, then what is an appetizer? Triumphed Big Wolf. You could tell that Little Wolf hadn't even heard of appetizers, but not wishing to sound stupid, he shouted, Jell-O is an appetizer. Everybody knows that. Then Big Wolf and Little Wolf looked at Herb and said, Well, where's the Jell-O? Jell-O, where was the Jell-O? Herb's mind was whirring like a frantic thing. Then he caught sight of his book of fairy tales. He had been looking at it last night, and it was lying on the open page where the dozy princess falls asleep at her own birthday party. No one at the table would notice if he borrowed some Jell-O. They were all snoozing, tired of waiting for Princess Beautiful to wake up. Herb was so busy struggling to slide the Jell-O off the page, he didn't notice the wicked fairy, wide awake and hiding under the table. She had been listening to every word. This was bad luck for Herb because the wicked fairy hated little boys only slightly less than she hated little girls. They made her very nervous. She'd seen what those little brats Hansel and Gretel had done to that poor defenseless witch. Not only did they nibble her cottage half to pieces, but when they went and shoved her in her own oven, children put her in a very, very bad mood indeed. Oh, you dozy doormat, don't you know anything? Snarled the fairy. You wolf half-wits give wickedness a bad name. He's tricked you, you twerps. Little boys are appetizers. Jell-O is dessert. And with that, the wicked fairy jumped back into the book and snapped it shut. First, the wolves went almost purple in the cheeks with embarrassment. Then their eyes went all mean and squinty. Herb could tell things had taken a turn for the really quite bad. So he snatched up the fairy tale book, found the page with the fairy godmother, and shook it until she tumbled out of the book and onto the floor. She was a bit cross, actually, because her dress got crumpled and she nearly twisted her ankle. Well, she said, I've got a good mind to turn you into a caterpillar, little boy. No, said Herb. Don't turn me into a caterpillar. It's those two who need to be caterpillars. Oh, no, not you two again, said the godmother, spying the two alarmed wolves. Always making trouble, blowing people's houses down, gobbling them up without so much as a do you mind. As she said this, she accidentally waved her hand at the little wolf, and the smoke went poof, just like in the fairy tales, and suddenly the little wolf was standing in a ball gown. Oh dear, this will never do, said the fairy godmother, shaking her head. That dress was meant for Cinderella. You shook me out of the book just as I was about to send her to the ball. Awfully nice dress, though. I have an eye for fashion, as you can probably tell, but not at all suitable for a wolf. Little Wolf took one look in the mirror and was so pleased with his new look that he jumped into the fairy tale book and went to the ball himself. Which, of course, left Cinderella having a night in, cleaning the kitchen after all. Oh, well, that's that then, sighed the fairy godmother. I'm not going to be at all popular at the palace now. I don't know what the king and queen are going to say when a wolf turns up at the ball to dance with their son. I imagine they will be very grumpy about it. I do hope she doesn't start snacking on the guests. The fairy godmother was so engrossed with her own problems that she hadn't noticed that Big Wolf was poised, ready to swallow Herb in one gulp. "Help, help, help," screeched Herb. Quick as a quick thing, the fairy godmother whooshed her wand and Big Wolf became a tiny caterpillar. "Oh, I do like caterpillars," said the fairy godmother, popping it back into the wolf storybook. "They're so undemanding, never bothering me for things, not like frogs, always thinking they are princes. What's more, I really have had enough of being squashed inside a book, doing favors for spoiled princesses. I'm going to take a vacation somewhere far away from royalty." And in a sudden twinkling of sequins, she disappeared. Before Herb got back into bed, he piled up all his books and then put the heaviest thing he could find on top of them, just in case anyone else was tempted to get out of his story. Then he switched off his light and dreamed of fierce caterpillars, fashionable wolves, and grouchy godmothers. The funny thing was, the next time Herb's mother came to read the wolf story, there was no wolf to be seen, just a tiny caterpillar trying with all his might to terrify a little girl in a red coat. Well, I hope that you liked the poems and the stories. I hope they, as I said before, I hope they weren't too babyish for you, but I want you to enjoy those beautiful drawings. You know, when I was a little girl, those were the drawings that we saw whenever we opened a book. And it always inspired me to think about where they were and imagine what their life was like outside of the stories. So anyway, come back again, I hope, to the Story Place. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone. This is Norfolk Public Access TV. And this has been the Story Place. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.